Hello, Winston.
Hello, Shanoa. How are you doing?
I'm good. How
It's
are
great to
you?
see you. I am making it. I'm alive and well and hopeful as ever. Thanks to you and all of the support.
So, okay, we're
So,
indulging in your case and trying to show everybody all the corruption within your case. Your case has a lot. So, this is going to take a series. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
It's going to take some time or some episodes to basically dive into this and show all the corruption within it. Um, so As everybody knows, this is Winston Walters, the wrongfully convicted teen, sentenced to 92 years, no chance of parole for a crime that he didn't commit, a crime where nobody was unalive, no women were harmed, no children were involved, no evidence of him there. So, January 2013, there was a home invasion style robbery, and both victims identified their own nephew, Jeremy Roebuck, who fit the description, the voice, the mannerism, knew his way, knew about a hidden key. um, I believe his evidence was found there, right?
Absolutely 100% correct. His evidence was found there in the form of a prescription pill bottle with his name on it, along with a Jimmy kit that matched his motive and backstory, and as well as the both victims identified him with 99% certainty on the night of the crime.
Right. So he was picked up, he was arrested. They did their investigation. We'll call it investigation. It was really a lack of investigation. And they later let him go due
Right.
to,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Due to an alibi, first and foremost, is was his that was how he was able to be released. That and his DNA did not match some of the things that they had tested at the crime scene. I'd just like to say his alibi, though, came from some people that we know around the area as, you could say, not reliable.
Unreliable alibi. He was homeless at the time, I believe, correct?
Yes, he was homeless and vehicleless, which is why, and the relevancy in that is that the victims actually repoed his vehicle 2 weeks prior to the robbery.
Yeah. And Rainey found out that as of 2021, he's been on the run for doing a home invasion style robbery yet again and pretending to be somebody else.
See right there, that just validates what I've been trying to tell everybody for so long, that that you have the wrong guy and you had the right guy the first time. In my opinion,
Yeah.
and in my belief, we all have one, but at the end of the day, there's only one truth, and that my truth is 100% that I am innocent and that somebody else did this crime.
Yeah, our private investigator, Randy Robinson, said that Doggy Bounty Hunter really wants to get on Jeremy Roebuck because he's been on the run since 21. And yeah, he's got his sights on him.
That would be great. Let's round him up and let's get that truthful confession out of him.
Right. So basically, since we're gonna have to do this in pieces, there's so much. Um, Jeremy was identified there. I mean, how can you misidentify your own family member? That's kind of hard to do. Um,
I agree.
the guy, I mean, the state wants to believe that you at 19 are a mastermind and you somehow knew your way around a house that you've never been in and you knew about a hidden key and just, you knew about the family cell phones and all this stuff, yet you've never met them and they've never identified you.
Absolutely. I just want to say first and foremost, I've never met these people. I've never seen these people ever in my life. We have never made any contact with each other. The state portrayed a picture as me being a facilitator of the crime. When I say facilitator, I mean the guy who tied up the victims, the guy who went into the room to get the woman out, the guy who shot the victim, the guy who had control of the scene. And it's just not accurate or factual in any way. If anything, just from outside looking in, common sense, I was 19 years old at the time. If you think that I did it, and the counterpart was 25 or 26, and but they also had describe me as having, like you said, a lot of knowledge of the home,
Right.
and that's just impossible to do unless you've been there before. You know,
Right. And the victims have said that you've never been on their property. They were stated for saying
absolutely,
that they've never seen you on their property before.
absolutely.
You mentioned that the state wants people to believe that you tied up the victims. Now, in what I read, the person who duct taped Miss Roebuck would have been you, right? Or Jeremy Roebuck, but they let Jeremy Roebuck go because his DNA wasn't on the duct tape, but neither was yours.
Yeah, that's a great point that you brought up. Yeah, the state had accused me of tying up one of the victims, and after evidence was gathered and the tape was gathered, they did DNA analysis on it. There was two DNAs. One was Miss Rita Roebuck's, without a doubt. It came back to one and several quintillion.
Quintillion.
Um, and then they obviously tested my DNA, the person they accused of doing it, and with the other DNA profile, and it was excluded. And
Yeah.
that alone, I was yes, I'm
And
just
then Jeremy Roebuck had an alibi, but did you have an alibi?
yes, I had an alibi. I had a alibi from my grandfather putting me at home the night of the crime. Um, However, for whatever reason, the jury discredited mine and went with the state's beautifully painted picture of corruption.
Which is crazy. So Jeremy gets identified. He's let go because his DNA is not on the duct tape and he has a shaky alibi. You have a concrete alibi and your DNA is not on the duct tape, yet they put you in their scope and just continuously.
Well, well, what it was is brainwashing. Um, there's documented police documents, records of when they pulled cellular devices from the Robux pond. 3 months after the crime happened, um, after Jeremy Roebuck had been released from jail, the victim, Mark Roebuck, on police record states that Jeremy Roebuck, he still believes it was Jeremy Roebuck who had done it.
Right.
And see, that contradicts his testimony at trial almost 2 years later. And the reason for that being is because of police coercion. The police had told the victims, "We have your guy. We have your guy. We have the evidence. We have a testimony against him." You know, and but what they didn't tell them is how they got that testimony and who it came from, and what type of mental state they were in. So
Yeah, and we're going to get to that later because there is a lot about these coerced statements and these people who have the coerced statements. So, is there the evidence at the crime scene? Basically, what they're saying is there's a magical water bottle. How do you this magical water bottle suddenly, like, they said that they found one person said they found it here, the other person said they found it here, multiple people said that they found it in different spots or were told it was in different spots, mixture DNA profile of a minimum of 4 people, and they're saying you're a 1 in 236% chance that you possibly could have contributed to that DNA. Is that the only evidence at the crime scene? That evidence per se?
um, yes, that is the only evidence per se, like you said, that they tried to place me at the crime scene, other than a statement. Um, the DNA, like you said, is 1 in 236. This DNA mixture profile, and as you know, as I know as well, you can never actually identify anybody
Can't
with a
do
mixture
that.
profile. Um, yes, how it was ever allowed in court, I still don't know to this day. I don't know what my lawyer didn't fight it harder, but there's a thing called proper crime scene documentation. And since being convicted for something I didn't do and seeing all the corruption that had to go into my case in order to convict me, I've become learned on these subjects. And proper crime scene documentation is one of the most critical and important parts of an investigation. Without it, everything else is bears what you call poisonous fruit. It all one rotten piece makes the whole thing corrupt. And that's what I want everybody to know about my case. It was formed off of a lie, and then in order to add and stick with that lie, more lies had to be formulated, more things had to be built, more. So yeah,
Okay, so this water bottle, right? Magical water bottle should have never been allowed into the courtroom at
it's
all because
never.
it's not documented.
No, there was no picture taken of it. There was all this evidence. There's pictures taken of all this evidence at the crime scene. But the one thing they used against me at trial was magically not documented and appeared out of nowhere. I believe in my mind, I don't. It was planted.
This plan.
When you're wrongfully convicted of something, people don't want to believe that the justice system works like that, but it absolutely does in some certain twisted cases.
Yeah, there's tens of thousands of people wrongfully incarcerated. Most of them don't get as much time as you. I think that the sentencing alone shows the bias and prejudice in your case. Um, so these people who are supposed to be professionals investigating this crime scene found a magical water bottle, and even their integrity is questionable. The lead investigator,
The
Chad,
lead investigator,
yeah,
yeah, Mr. Chad Powell. The funny story about that is Chad Powell is actually from my hometown. I knew him and his daughter when I was growing up. The first thing that pops in my head about Chad Powell is that he was actually fired from my hometown police department several years before I was arrested. He was uh, he was found to be operating an illegal tattoo parlor from his home while tattooing was still illegal in Oklahoma, and he was doing this while an active duty member of the police department. Uh,
so he
so
knew
yeah,
who you were.
yeah, Chad Powell he knew who I was, not only just because of being on a television show and being small town famous, as they would say, but because we were actually from the same town at one point. He gets fired from my county, goes to the next county over, literally, and becomes the lead investigator.
It's crazy. So I read through the stuff and I saw that the nephew got a hold of police without knowing that police were looking for him.
Yeah, that's something my lawyer had brought up during trial. Is Jeremy Roebuck's nephew had actually went to, I believe, the Marlow Police Department and confessed, I did not do this. I had no part of it. The crazy part about that is the police were still casing the crime scene. Nobody had let out any information from the scene. So how would you know to go proclaim your innocence, so to speak?
Yeah, and why wouldn't you be checking on your uncle who was shot instead of trying to run and say I didn't do this, right? There's
Yeah, that's a question. Yeah, that's a question for Jeremy Roebuck and him alone. I think I know the answer, but and I think a lot of people, if they use common sense, they could probably get it. But that's a question for him for
So
sure.
he had no idea anybody was even speculating that it was him, yet he runs to the police station and says I didn't do it.
Yeah, yeah, and that always blew my mind too, and that's something that my lawyer thought was really weird. How are you
That
going
is
to
weird.
know, for one, that you're even a suspect in the case? Without when nothing has been released, when the detectives are still working the crime scene actively.
Okay, so again, this is going to be a long one. We're going to have to do quite a few of these because there's so much going on. But let's just say, okay, so the crime happened in January and in November you're arrested, right?
Yes, after they had already arrested Jeremy Roebuck and let him go. Yeah, I was arrested in 11 months, 11 and a half months after the crime occurred.
Okay, and who brought you into the case? Like who got your name up?
My name got brought into the hat by, it's really actually a complicated story, but this is what we're here for, right?
Right.
Okay, mine got brought to the hat by a kid named Michael McKay. Excuse me. Michael McKay was arrested previously for robbing the local Nazarene church from the town that I lived in. He had like 6 or 8 active counts. At the time that he was caught brandishing a firearm pointing it at people. Okay, so he was taken in for that charge. And upon being taken in, they ran an NCIC, which is a computer program that's ran on stolen weapons. It's a registry. So that weapon popped up, stolen from a home invasion style robbery out of Comanche. Well, once questioned and interrogated about where did you get this firearm, he said that he got it from John Oxford and my residence. Now, with that being said, he further expounded and said that he found it in a laundry hamper in my room. What's important about all this is, for one, uh, my roommate's room over the laundry room, which is where all the laundry hampers are kept. Uh, at trial, he went on to say that he was very familiar with the house, that he had came over 15 to 30 times. I can't remember the exact individual there. And but what's funny about that is, what I don't even think he realized is, I had just moved into this house with John Oxford in late September. So from the time he is said to break into the house in October to me moving in September, that's literally, we're looking at less than a month. So how could you have came over to my house almost 30 times in the course of a month, unless you were coming over every day? And that's absolutely 100% not the case.
Right. And
I
he
don't.
he lied. One of his first statements is the lie, saying that he had barely known you at all, like maybe a year or whatnot. And yet you guys went to like elementary, junior high together, all right?
Absolutely, that's true. Michael McKay, yeah, I actually remember when he moved to town. He came from Geronimo after, I'm not going to put his personal business out here, but after a traumatic family
I
experience.
will. He moved over there because his mother was put in prison for essaying one of her students. But you can continue.
Yes, but anyway, yeah, we were on some of the same junior high sports teams. We went from junior high all the way to graduation together. I knew him for many years. He was never one of my peers, so I never hung out with a different peer group.
Right. So he knew you. He stood on the stand and he lied right off the bat. I'm saying he barely knew you, but we can find pictures of you guys on the same sports teams in junior high, which is years of knowing of somebody. You don't have to be friends to have known somebody.
Absolutely, yeah. I never understood why he started with a lie, but it doesn't surprise me because everything he has said was a lie.
Right. And he said that basically, he had somebody else with him, I believe, when he broke in through a Yorkie-sized doggy door, pushed a loaded washer out of the way, and fed 2 pit bull cereal to break into your shared home where he said he found guns.
Yes, that's correct. That is the story he gave them. Since then, the person who was with him, Marcus Yakashai is his name, he actually came out and said that, no, I was never with Michael McKay. I don't know what he was talking about. He had no clue. Um,
And
so,
even though Marcus said that what he said was a lie, the judge and the jury didn't care.
absolutely. Marcus Yakashai never testified at my trial.
He never
That's,
testified.
it was after my trial that Marcus Yakashai came out and said these things.
We got to get an interview with that guy. So you just moved into this house. This kid, obviously, pathological liar. Very, very rough upbringing, given the things that his mom, the reason why he moved to your guys' town. Did he get time at all? This robber with a robbery gun said that he robbed your shared home, and he got, what did he get? What was his time?
If I remember correctly, I believe that Michael McKay was sentenced to rehab for robbing the church and brandishing a firearm for his given statement at my trial. But what came of his initial statement, 11 months after the initial crime happened, was a search of my residence. And they went all in on this search. You have to understand, my co-defendant, John Oxford, um, he was doing weekends in county at this time. Me um, and a couple other friends were at my house when the initial raid on my house, which the initial of me being brought into the case happened on a Sunday. Uh, After Michael McKay's testimony, the police, Chad Powell specifically, went all in on his testimony. And he told them there was guns all in the laundry hamper. He told them there was all this kinds of stuff at the house. They found, upon that, they got a big search together. State agents, like I said, the news, local law enforcement. It was a joint effort. They came up with AK-47s drawn and, you know, beat down my door per se. Um, After all that, 6 or 8 hours of interrogation and searching, nothing was found that validated Michael McKay's statements at all. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
And that is the
It was
first time that they slandered your name, correct?
Yes, and it came out, and on that night, I willingly gave my DNA, which came back to bite me in the ass. I would have gave it anyway, but I just thought, hey, I have nothing to do with this. Take my DNA. Well, several months later, or however long it was, they manipulated it and used it to 1 in 236 chance of the possibility of being on a mysterious water bottle that was never documented. So it shows more manipulation within my case.
Yeah, I believe that even now, some of the people who look into your case, they try to tell me, oh, they found guns at his house. But in your stuff, they didn't find anything there. They just slandered your name and pretended like it was a drug bust.
Absolutely. That's 100% correct. If anything, they found guns by John Oxford's mother's house, guns that he led them to in a secret spot that were buried where next to his mother's residence, an area that he would know. And the key word here is he and him, not me. Only thing I'm guilty of is being around people who did bad things and implicated me with them.
Right. And we have to get to that. Like that again, long process. There's a lot here. We have to get to that. So John inevitably is the person who led police to guns. Now, how did you meet John? How long have you known John?
Okay, so the crime happened in January of 2013. I had first met John and the first time I ever hung out with him was in December, late December, a little after Christmas, in December and New Year's of 2012. So around a month before the crime happened was one of my first occasions to meet John.
And you didn't even live with him till September. So, okay, keep going. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, I didn't live with John. Our friendship really developed after after the robbery had happened. See, I was at 11 years ago when I was 19 years old. I was an up and coming star, you could say. At least I had aspirations to be one. I had been 2 years on a reality television show, and I was an aspiring actor. I had just finished filming a movie that never was released due to these allegations, called Torn from Normal. But anyway, John Oxford and his family were getting their own reality television show called Okies versus Aliens. Well, during all my filming process, I fell in love with the production side of filmmaking, and I knew it's what I wanted to do. So when I heard of this opportunity of production coming to my area, I jumped on opportunity. You think, hey, do you think you could get me a job working for your show? And sure enough, I was hired on as an assistant cameraman, and that's where me and John Oxford's friendship really bloomed. And you got to think this is a several weeks, like 2 weeks right after the crime happened, and he's got tons of money. He's spending, but in my mind, I know that he worked on an oil field, and I know he's doing a show. And from working in reality television, I know it pays fairly well. So I never thought about anything about the money until years later I came out and I started putting two and two together in myself as I was locked
Yeah.
up.
So you guys were gonna work on a show together, and you guys started your kinship, started becoming friends, and then you got close enough to move in.
Yeah. Okay. So after this transpired, like I said, we were on the road a lot. We stayed at the same hotel. We became quick friends. He had a sympathetic story, like to a story. He had a troubled life. He had a troubled upbringing. He had been in and out of juvenile hall as a kid. Has developed, has experienced um, run-ins with the law his whole life, pretty much, and currently didn't have his daughter. So his plight was he wanted his daughter back, and in doing so, I got him a job at the same place I was working after filming, which was Owens Construction. Sean Owens, the business owner here in Lawton. So I got him a job with me. I also trained mixed martial arts at the time, and I knew that was something he had done. I believe he had one amateur fight under his belt, and so I got him to start training with me. So just trying to bring positivity and goodness into a person's life. And that's really the only John Oxford I knew. I believe that he was kind of rehabilitating, or he at least compartmentalized part of his life away from me. I could always sense a darker side, but I never witnessed it, so to speak.
Well, you're
The
young.
most we
He's older.
Yeah, the most we ever did together was drink and smoke a little weed when it was illegal. Party. That was with anybody. That's testing the line for me.
Well,
I
you were
wasn't,
19. I think we all did that.
I was never a criminal. That's what you have to understand, Shanola. I was a kid, like you said, but I had goals. I had aspirations. I wanted to be, I had dreams of being someone, so to speak, and it was all taken away from me because of the statement of career criminals who got on the stand and lied and all received freedom for their deal, for their testimony.
Right. And we gotta get deeper into this, like John's deal, everybody else who implicated you in this crime, because it is just basically a crime with no evidence, just coercion, coerced statements from career criminals who all got deals to say you were there. You really were the man that they were, or the boy that they wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I see our visitation's about to end. And are we having another one or another
Yeah,
time?
we could.
Okay. Says we have -1 seconds left. I don't know how that works, but still okay. Maybe they can give us some free time. Maybe they seen that our interview wasn't done.